So we're going to go to Mark 12 today, and a story that, again, I know not everyone grew up with Sunday school, but I'm kind of old school in my Christianity in that regard, and I grew up in Sunday school with the felt board and some of these kinds of poorly drawn caricatures of Bible characters. Boy, that was harder to say than I anticipated. And so good to see Anne Marie in the house too, by the way. But this was one of those stories that I don't know that I ever heard it preached on independently. Like it would show up in another message because it's a good story to make a point. But in Sunday school, you sort of got the deeper view of it. And Mark 12 starts with Jesus just essentially, frankly, challenging some people pretty hard. Like he's sorting out some fake followers in the beginning of Mark 12. He is really dealing with some corrupt or abusive leaders and some leeches. Like he is busting on folk that had financial provision that were taking advantage of widows and not taking care of them as per the cultural contingencies that were in place. And he was really hard on, like, they rob widows. That's a part of what he said. And then after he's lived in this space in the temple, he steps just outside. Mark 12:41 tells us Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were given and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Underline temple treasury there. I'll come back to that in a minute. And then Mark goes on to record, many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins worth only 2 cents. In fact, this morning's message is literally titled, My 2 cents worth. Because y'all know I love a play on words. You're familiar probably with that phraseology, 2 cents. I'll put in my 2 cents or my 2 cents worth. Maybe not, but it actually goes way back. So this saying originated, Grant, back in like England of the 1600s, and they probably said my 2 farthings worth or something like that. And then it also has a bit of a connection to the more common saying that says a penny for your thoughts. Anybody ever heard that? I mean, that's not used a lot anymore. Lord help us. I mean, I don't want to pay a penny for someone's thoughts for the most part, but they give them for free all the time, right, on Facebook. But a penny for your thoughts, and that's today's not so clandestine bust on social media from Ron. You're welcome. But from penny for your thoughts, Gabriel came this phrase, well, I'll just give you my 2 cents worth. Shout out to Gabriel for sharing on Father's Day too, by the way. Yeah, I caught that message. It was punchy. And shout out to Josh for last week as well, in case you're watching, Josh. Yeah, making me look short-winded. I appreciate that, bruh. Yeah. But the penny for your thoughts, kind of became, well, I'm going to give you twice as much as you asked for, right? I'm going to give you my 2 cents worth. And then also in some context, it kind of became like it's not worth much, right? Just 2 cents. It's my 2 cents. Like I'm going to throw this in there. Probably won't matter much to you, but I'm just going to give you my 2 cents worth. And in this context, I don't doubt that this is a very intentional mention. There were probably lots of people that gave varied amounts while Jesus was watching people put their offerings into the temple treasury. He could have called out probably a little boy or, a dad, or there was all kinds of people he could have shouted out that gave a lot or little. But he specifically and especially mentions this widow. And it would have been tough to be a widow in this season. Because, again, if the cultural contingencies didn't work and Jesus was just busting on folks for not standing into that place where they were taking care of people, she would have been in a place of tremendous financial struggle. And it would seem reasonable that she might say, because of that, I can't really participate, right, in the ministries of the temple. I can't really make a difference. I mean, and why would I want to anyway? I mean, you got all these people who can, like, I'm giving my 2 cents, which seems insignificant when there are people here who can do that many, many, many times over. So, and they're not taking care of me. Come on, somebody. I think often in regards to our giving what we've got to God, we think, well, okay, I got to take care of me and mine. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got this to work on. And incidentally, this isn't a message about money. I mean, the money matters, but this isn't a message about money. And we'll get into that too. But there's this place where we can definitely fall back into an unbelieving, faithless, I've got to take care of me because God won't mentality and rob ourselves of the miraculous provision we only get from God. Oof. That was a long and incredibly important sentence that I could never repeat. But it's perfectly true. I'm impressed with the fact that she participated in this way, and I don't think it's an accident that Jesus mentioned her. Makes me wonder what her needs were. I mean, what was she going through? And maybe she had been praying for her miracle. She had no idea that the King of creation would be there. I don't know that he talked to her afterward. I'd like to know. I find it hard to believe he didn't, but maybe he didn't. But I think he probably did. But I know this, that this woman in her obedience found grace in the eyes of God. It reminds me of an 828 go-to text. One that I quote a lot or reference a lot comes from 2 Corinthians 8, 1 through 5, where Jesus spoke of a church that was in that same situation, the church at Macedonia. So he's writing to the Corinthians about the Macedonians, and he says, in spite of their hardship and extreme poverty, because of their faith in me, they exploded, right, in an expression of generosity. And they actually asked for the opportunity to participate. And that, for me, is the story of this widow. Our trip was a blessing because of God's faithfulness and because of an incredible, incredible team. A group of people who, frankly, in all honesty, I never heard a complaint from a lot of them. And it was a pensive posture that we had a lot of the time because there were so many unknowns. And that was constant. I mean, the first night that we landed in Zambia, our situation with housing, the timing wasn't going to work out so that we could get where we were going. And so I'm having to, take these peeps. I mean, David Muse is a monster. He's a beast, and he was amazing. He never complained about the rabbit trails I took them on, trying to find our way to a place to stay that I didn't know about or where it was. We're just trying to find our way. And God miraculously provided in all those situations. One of the people on the team trip, though, that was just consistently awesome was Miss Jenny. And I don't know how many, she wasn't here in the first service. I shouted her out. I don't know how many of you know Miss Jenny. She's a person of impact in our church family. She is one of our life group leaders, and she's just a phenomenal blessing, a gift to the 828 church family. And she was planning to go to Southern Africa in 2020. And then they had this thing called a pandemic and didn't get to go. And then we kind of reloaded that trip, obviously, for 2021. And they still had a pandemic. So it required some things of us that maybe it wouldn't normally have required, and she went anyway. Not only did she go, but she was just the entire time. I mean, her eyes were so big with wonder about God and the love that God had for her to allow her to be there. And I will say to you, the value she added to the team was immeasurable. Like, it was just beautiful and it was amazing. And I just love the heart she had to constantly give the best she had to God. And Jenny is only 70, and I told her I will take her for as many years as she wants to go. And I meant that because she was just a blessing. And her divine appointments on the trip were incredible. But it was largely because, like the heart of this lady in this passage, she was willing to bring what she had to him and believe God could do something great with it. And that's a huge inspiration to me. 70 isn't that old, but I will tell you it's the oldest person that we've ever actually had travel on a trip. Tex was going to be there because he's a little older than you, but he had a back issue, so you now are the record holder. And you can go every year and break your own record. But it wasn't her age that defined her on this trip. I want to be clear about that. I joke with her plenty. Don't worry about that. But the depth of her heart and relationship with God was game-changing. Game-changing. It changed the nature of who we were as a team. And I'm saying, and that's not just true there, that's true here. Here's what I want you to hear from all of that. We are called to contribute what we have to what God has called his kids to accomplish. Always. Like, it doesn't matter, if you're 7 or 70 or 97 for that matter. If you're still here, you've got something to offer to what God has called his kids to accomplish, and you're meant to bring it to him. For me personally, it was crazy. I somehow, in the middle of all of that, and everybody spoke and did incredibly well, I managed somehow to speak 12 times, like a dozen times in that 17-day trip. Sort of blows my mind a little. Now, a couple of times that was 3, in one service. There was 2 here, 3 there, 2 here, kind of thing like that. It wasn't like every day. But every time I spoke, I reverted back to a story that I shared here a few weeks ago. It's the only reason I bring it up. Because I've been hung up on the story lately about the little boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. Remember me telling that story here about how he gave it all away, and I believe he probably got a basket back. Can't prove that till we get to heaven, but I just think if they collected 12 baskets, surely they gave him 1. Come on, somebody. And I feel like that's what it's like for us. Like, in as much as Jenny was an incredible blessing to us, what she constantly spoke of wasn't, man, I'm such a gift to this team. What a blessing I am to you guys. What kept coming out of her heart was, can you believe it? I'm here. Meeting these Hope Heart ladies, or I'm here watching these kids from Village of Hope, or I'm seeing the Indian Ocean. Who would ever have thought? I mean, that was the heart she had, and that's what it's like when we give what we got to God. He gives more back than we can imagine. Prepare to have your mind blown. If you bring what you've got to God. And in fact, that's a big deal for the family too. Another takeaway for us, I shared this last week. I spoke at a church in Joburg in a series they had called Family All Sorts. And my message was, Family All Sorts requires all sorts of intentional. And intentional in bringing, again, who we are and what we have to Him. That's what makes the family, come on, the family work. I grew up in a family, as you guys know, of 7 and occasionally 8 when my grandma lived with us, and everybody participated. Like, you were all required to add effort to making the family and the house that I grew up in work. And I believe that's true for the family of God too. A takeaway for us is this: if everyone gives what they've got to God, the family will always have all it needs. And I'll say to you that the world needs Christians to come on, get on board, and give what they got to God. The church should never be without. I'm not speaking just so much about 828 Church, but it's true here too. I mean, God's got big dreams for this family as well. And they're not just localized. I mean, God's got big dreams. But for those dreams to be accomplished, they don't all rest on me or even on our amazing team here at 828 Church. It is contingent on all of us bringing what we got to God, because without that, we will be short somewhere on what we need to be who God made us to be. That's how that works. This lady brought what she had. Then, verse 43, Jesus gave an unexpected commentary on the passage. So Mark kind of lays it out for us. Jesus went and sat outside the temple treasury. He watched people bring in their offerings. There were huge offerings, but this one lady gave 2 copper coins, and then Jesus gives some commentary. He called his disciples over and said, the truth is that this poor widow gave more to the collection than all the others put together. So back when, I don't even know. I'm so confused about time frames. Has COVID done that to anyone else? Like, I don't even know what happened. 2020. I say a series we did just a minute ago, and now I find out it's a year and a half ago. But we did a series some time ago called Do the Math. And all of you people that have history with me were shocked that I would do a series on math. Right. Back me up. Because for a long time, I just always said math is hard. It's true, but I also find math fascinating. And I referenced this passage in that series because the disciples were thinking, Jesus is terrible at math. I mean, he can raise the dead, but he can't count. We should buy this brother an abacus or something because he does not know what's going on right here, right? Because he thinks she gave more. And then he went on to say in verse 44, all the others gave what they will never miss, what they'll never miss. And she gave extravagantly what she couldn't afford. When's the last time with your heart you gave God what you couldn't afford? In fact, he went on to say she gave her all. So what's he talking about? I mean, I don't think it's a real hidden meaning, but let's unpack that for a quick minute to finish this morning's message. Because what's he talking about? I mean, what did he mean? And obviously, he's not bad at math. What does he mean when he says she gave more than all the rest? Well, I think we go back to, as I promised, verse 41, and I told you I would underscore the temple treasury, because I think here's the reality, Chad. God treasures some things. What he treasures is different often than what we treasure. But that's the bottom line. What makes this passage true is for us to consider what is meant to be treasured. And I have a short list. It's not a complete list. It's not exhaustive. There are other things, as I often say, you could add to this list, but I think these are God's high priority for us today. Number one, I think if we consider what we're meant to treasure, we would understand that we're meant to treasure time and attention. One of our greatest commodities, one of the most important things we have to give in this life that we live is our time and attention. What do you give your time and attention to? I'm not saying you should never give it to things that, for maybe someone who's caught in some sort of a spiritual legalistic mindset, might think are trivial. I think there are rhythms to rest and enjoyment and recreation, all those things. I don't think that we should count things as trivial just because they're not overtly spiritual. But I do think we should be very careful about what we give our time, come on somebody, and attention to. And I think when we invest our time and attention in the things that matter most, we'll see the most impact from the investment and the most return. Come on somebody. That's true. Time and attention. James, the brother of Jesus, said in James 4:14, you're a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. I don't know, I'm trying to remember where this was coming from. Someone was asking the question in just the last little bit in my friend circle, if you could go back. I think it was Jeff Bond who traveled with us from Cape Town. He was a part of our team trip for a while. He may be watching this evening in Cape Town, but Jeff's had this conversation with, if he could go back and tell his 20-year-old self something, what would he say? What would it be that you would say to yourself? And I think someone had asked him that question strategically. And so he was kind of chatting about that. And I was thinking, as a 55-year-old papa who loves being that, by the way, I think if I could say anything, I would say what I had been told even then by others. I would only simply say it to myself, and that's to treasure the time. Because it really does go by. It really does go by fast. And I don't think that has to make us melancholy or sad. I think it just makes us intentional about our time. How do we spend it? And the Bible has much to say about that. I sometimes get a little confused about time. Do you ever? It's funny too. I appreciate my dentist that I've been working with in South Africa for the last little bit. But he's terrible at time guesses. When I was just there, I was getting some more work done on my teeth while the team was working in Georgia, South Africa. And I said, how long do you think this will take? And he told me, and I said, okay. So I told the team 2.5 times that. And he said, okay. I said, well, so far, I've spent 17 hours in this chair. So, yeah, that's true. 17 hours in the dentist chair. You think about that for a quick minute. Whew, hallelujah. Anyway, but I think sometimes we just get a little confused about time. We underestimate the investment that's necessary to make a big difference or the value of it. It's not even just when, but how we spend our time and attention. I even got confused on this trip, which isn't uncommon when you travel a lot. Anybody get confused when you travel? Because sometimes I do. It's like, I don't know what time it's supposed to be. And we got tested coming out of Zambia. We had to get COVID tests, and like I said, it was at a first world hospital. And then a week later, we had to get tested again in preparation for our return trip home. And we were getting tested in Georgia, South Africa. And an amazing man of God that's part of their team there, Mornay, was going to meet us to help us facilitate that, which was really kind of him. We're supposed to meet him at 7:45. So I had set an alarm to get up at 7, and I never let my alarm go off. That's kind of a thing for me. But I set it because I feel like it'll help me sleep a little bit better, just knowing that if perchance I were to oversleep this one time, I would wake up. So I'd set it for 7, and then at 5:59, I turned it off real quick because I thought, wow, man, I almost went all the way to my alarm, and I jumped up, and no one was up. Like none of the ladies, I figured they'd take a little more time with their hair than I do. Nobody's up. I'm thinking, we're going to be late to meet Mornay. That's just rude. So I'm like waking Ricky up, who was sleeping in an open area there, and I'm rolling around. I'm fussing a little bit, and I'm like, start singing obnoxiously, loudly in the hallway. Wake up, little Susie, wake up, da-da-da-da-da-da. No lights are coming on. So then I'm like, I'm going to go all rooster on it, right? I'm going down the hallway. And then Ricky said, Ron, it's 6 o'clock. And I went, well. And you heard me say I turned my alarm off at 5:59. Oops. Just got confused about time. I have no idea how I'm going to tie this story in, but it made everybody's top 10 most hilarious things that happened. I went back in my room and closed the door and was just hoping that none of the ladies would walk out throwing stuff at me. They didn't even move, though. They just totally ignored me. CJ said he looked at David and said he's confused about time. He'll figure it out in a minute. Come on, it happens to us too, though. I think I just saw the tie-in. It does happen to us, and it might not have to do with a physical clock or an alarm, but sometimes we just get so out of whack in the way we're investing our time. And it's not just time, it's attention, like the attention you give people. Jesus was so good at this. Think about week 1's message about Zacchaeus. Jesus gave him time and attention. He saw him When the woman touched the hem of his garment, the word says he what? He saw her. Can I encourage you today to bring your time and your attention and offer it to God? Lord, every day. You know, you all have heard me say that one of the prayers that I consistently pray is, God, help me to see you today. I pray this over Karen and I. Help us to be on point with you and what matters to you. I don't want to miss divine appointments. I want to take my time and redeem it. And, you know, that doesn't mean that I don't have spaces where I don't feel like I'm necessarily in that moment living in a divine appointment, but when they come, I don't want to miss them. Jesus, I think about the attention he gave to the woman at the well. So intentionally went there and gave her both. A woman who was so wounded and hurt, and what she needed was his time and his attention. Or blind Bartimaeus, who was calling out from the road, and they were trying to shush him, but not Jesus. Or the leper who came walking down the road and knew somehow in advance that Jesus would be compassionate on him. When everyone else would have said, ooh, away, away, Jesus gave him time and attention and touch. Or the kids, you know, the Sermon on the Mount, and they were like, get these kids away from him. He's an important teacher. And Jesus popped somebody in the back of the head. This is a Ron translation. But do not keep these kids away from me. What are you doing? They need my time and my attention. And he wasn't afraid to give it to Nicodemus, who was a religious leader either, because he came sincerely seeking. Jesus was so good at this, and I want to be good at this. This is something I have to offer him. I don't have a lot, but I can offer him my time and my attention. What are you doing with yours? He was great with his friends too. He always had time for them. One of my least favorite things for someone to say to me is, I know you're busy, and I love you. I heard that this morning. I love you. I love you trying to protect my heart and care about that. But if I ever get too busy to give my time and attention to you and to God, then I'm just too busy. And I need to be corrected before the Lord. That doesn't mean we don't have boundaries or need space. That's not what that means. But that means that this is one of those things that we get to offer to him. And it was amazing. Our trip to Africa was more about that than probably it was about anything. In fact, I think it was all four of the things I'm about to mention just now. But it was time and attention. And they said that. We haven't had a team, as I said. They said, we haven't had a team in almost 2 years. You guys just being here means so much to us. In this moment, when so many people are testing positive and things are so hard, to have someone come at some personal risk, right? They knew the cost was significant for us as well. If someone even popped a false positive, I don't have a tremendous amount of confidence in the perfection of tests. And that's not me hating. There's no political commentary in that. It's an imperfect science. You can get a false positive. You can get a false negative. Somebody gets a false positive, we're sequestered. There was risk involved, and they knew that, and that on some level made it mean more that we were there. And then we went into the bush, and we got to be around a campfire with pastors, in some cases I haven't seen in a minute, and it just means so much to what they say. They never say, your preaching is so powerful. Your leadership teachings are incredible. They say, you came back. That's what they always say. You came back. There's something incredible about time and attention. And it was amazing to see the pastors from Malkulipe, Kashitu, Kate, and in a brand new church planted in a place called Yetta, and beyond. There were other people there too, some that you would know. Mama T. I mean, there are people there that remember the people who came the first time a decade ago, because this stuff matters. It was amazing to see Kenzie rekindle some of her connections. She's now working with the Zambia Project, and it was incredible to see Jenny and Linnell to connect with the Hope Art ladies. And the friendships, you got sisters over the ocean. Why? Because time and attention is an incredible offering to get to give. It has immense value. Audra, who I mentioned a minute ago, for those of you who don't know, Isaac's over here, Audra's over here, but they love each other very much and aren't married. They sat together in the first service. No one worry about them. They're good. She just wanted to sit by Jenny, and I don't blame her. She's trying to glean some more of that spiritual punch. But Audra was on a team trip in 2011 to Malkulipe, and one of the pastors, who's now the pastor of the most significant church in Western Zambia, Moses is the pastor of Hope Church. And he remembered Audra. Why? Because time and attention are a valuable commodity. and they have made an impact. And you can pray specifically for Moses and his wife. They both tested positive for COVID, pastor of the church, and she's pregnant. We went to Johannesburg. We're getting ready to preach and teach at Church Alive, and the pastor messaged me on Saturday and said, my wife just tested positive for COVID. We won't be able to be there. And our team slotted in and served. That was how the trip worked. Our God took the offering of our time and attention and even our presence, which I'm going to segue to in just a minute, and made it impactful. Time and attention are treasured kingdom commodities. Let me just move on from that to the second set of points. I kind of cheated here. I got a 3-point sermon that's really 5. But another incredible commodity is presence and passion. These are things you get to give. And just being present is so powerful. And you guys, I hope right now you're thinking of situations where this is true for you here. It's true for me here. More true for me here than it is there. But the opportunity just to show up, right? To be there. And when I say show up, I mean bring everything you got to it, right? I mean like really show up. Not just be there, but be there, right? And the power of presence. And I love, again, about Jesus, just to shout out the one who leads the way in regards to this. Jesus always brought his best to every connection. Like every connection you see with him, he was never blowing somebody off. He was never sort of there, but not so much, right? So there in body, but not in heart. I mean, when Jesus was there, he was there, right? He was present, fully present. And I mentioned a minute ago, for me, the pace was unrelenting, and it was true for all of us. But I mean, Kenzie and I were, and even Audra, with when we were in the bush, we were just constantly making adjustments and finding our way. And on top of that, I was just preaching a lot. So there was a lot of that, and it was just coming quickly. And sometimes I was misinterpreting what was expected of me until I got there, which is a pretty common Ron trait. And in fact, when we got to George, we flew into George from Johannesburg. We did church there. Our team slotted in and helped. And we were even debating, should we fly to George? Because that's an hour and 45-minute flight. It's in a different province. Clearly, COVID is, this third wave, Delta variant. We got to make sure that we get back for Wednesday's flight back to the States. There's a lot riding on that. But, I call Paul, my friend that pastor. He's like, no, come, it's fine. Jeff's saying, maybe not so much. So I'm like, what do we do? So we flew. We get on the ground in George. We go to church with them. And then there's just rumors trickling around. The president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, is making an announcement at 8, and he's probably going to close the airports to interprovincial travel. So I'm making a plan to drive the 13 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, this rental van is not getting turned back in as planned. And we're trying to figure it out. And then God's just showing up. Just keeps showing up, showing off, doing things. Pensive posture, but a lot of peace. And then on, Monday, we got tested and everything. Monday night, I'm kind of going, okay. And everybody got negative, which was awesome. Oh, that's good. Hallelujah. That was our journey. And then I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm supposed to speak at staff. But I think I'm just being interviewed by Paul. And then I looked at an Instagram post that they had done, and I realized, nope, I'm preaching. Hope that doesn't make me seem irresponsible. There was a lot going on. And so I said, okay, Jesus, what do you want to do? And you know what the Lord spoke to me? He said, if you'll show up, I'll show off. That's right. Oof. I mean, my heart was just like, all righty then. I know how to do that. Priceless commodities, people. Does that mean don't prepare? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, where God gives me prep, I need to take it, and if I don't, you're going to know it. Boy, he was not listening to God. But there are a lot of times when what God's asking from us is presence and passion. Just presence and passion. Just show up. Now, I didn't just show up like I you know what I'm saying? Like I brought who I am, what I had. I was just like, okay, God, here I come. And I mean, I was scribbling notes, but I felt like mud. I mean, at 11:30, I was like, I can't feel my feet anymore. I've got to go to bed. You know what I'm saying? Like you just get so tired, and the Lord said, just go to sleep. When you get there, bam. And it was punchy. And it was what God wanted them to hear. It was, you were built for this. I told them that. You were built for this. And I shared stories about trees that carry snow and trees that can handle the wind. And I talked about Corvettes versus 4x4s. And it was awesome. Why? Because if you will show up, God will show off. You just step into who God made you to be. And this is not a preacher word. This is you being you wherever you are you. And just watching God take your presence and your passion. I do mean passion too, by the way. like a fire shut up in my bones, as it were. Like, bring that. And if you don't have that, get it today. When we start singing and worship in a few minutes, you get down here and you say, God, rekindle a flame inside of my heart, because I want to care about this the way you care about this. And then when you do, you watch God work. You watch your life and the lives of those around you be changed. That's my 2 cents. Passion and presence. Really big deal to God. 2 Timothy 1:6, I remind you to fan into flames the spiritual gift of God, or the spiritual gift God gave you. And I love the New Living Translation right there, right? Fan into flames, not just one flame. There's a big fire. It's like a full-on brush fire. Speaking of fire, man, watching this amazing team around the bush fire was incredible too. Lots of people that had done it before, like the aforementioned Audra or David or Ricky. Ricky brought it. His communication and connection with the interpreter and all of what, that's complicated. I was so proud of these guys. Powerful and punchy words. But we had 3 people who had never spoken around a campfire before, never spoken through an interpreter, which you got to, change your cadence, and it can feel really awkward. And Miss Jenny was amazing. Again, just amazing. Carly, who's like, it's okay. I don't really want to share. Or I don't have to, or we'll see. I don't know. She's got all these cute little sayings she says. But then the minute she opens her mouth, like a wisdom that belies the fact that she's 20, comes out of her heart with a passion that is so powerful. And her cadence with the interpreter was like she'd been doing it her entire life. Like, I was expecting her to be awesome, and I was still going. I mean, fire, incidentally, is always hot. Presence and passion. You can't make fire not hot. That's why it worked. And it was so important. And then Lindsay. I mean, Lindsay is a mom who, left kids with, what do you guys call Dottie? Mammy. And Chad. Think about that. She left kids with Chad. So, she was worried. I'm kidding. Chad is a great dad. And I don't think she was worried. But she rocked up in the bush, never having been there before. And she could have shown up as a preacher. She could have shown up as a church leader or a life group leader. But she showed up as a mom. And she brought a word from a mom to moms. Her being there for those moms in the bush, presence and passion are such incredible commodities. And I'll finish with this. And this is where Ron almost always lands in a word about giving. But the most important thing you have to give. In fact, I'll just open this point with a takeaway. You are what you have to give. At the end of it, all of that other stuff I'm talking about really could be condensed to this one point, but then it would have been an excessively short message. But you, who you are. And not the you that you might define without God. That's a very broken version of ourselves, right? But the you that God's, be who God made you to be. Believe in who God says you are in His Word. And then give that to God. And there's no earning a place of relationship with Him. There's no striving in that. The most restful place we have in the kingdom is the place of surrender, where we give who we are to God. I mean, in spite of the pensive posture that you would necessarily have on a trip like this during a pandemic, we had incredible peace. Incredible peace. Because the place of surrender is always surrounded by unbelievable grace and incredible peace. Somebody that knows them right, just back me up real quick. It's true. And I was kind of looking for a poem. I'm in this space now, I guess. I couldn't find a poem about 2 cents, so I wrote one. And I'll share it with you now. 1 cent, 2 cents, give what you got. Give who you are. You will add a lot. But if your 2 cents are nonsense, then please hold your peace. Your giving won't help, just subtract, not increase. So give just to give God and others your best. Then your giving will grow, and your heart will find rest. So give. And give you. You're the best gift to give to God and others. And then as much as it is the 4th of July, a takeaway that applies to this passage, but also to this day, the path to freedom is always paved with surrender and leads to faith-filled dependence on God. And I feel like this is what was going on with this widow who gave. I wonder what was going on in her life. What were her struggles? What were her challenges that she had to overcome? Maybe there weren't any or many. I don't know. But I don't, again, think it's an unintentional mention that he mentions a, quote, poor widow. Like, there must have been some things there for that to have impressed Jesus in the way that it did. And yet she came. And she gave. And I'm sure that required from her an incredible amount of surrender. Back to Mark 12:44. She gave extravagantly what she couldn't afford. I've been contemplating that since yesterday. I wonder what that means for me. What is it that I can't afford? Because whatever it is that you can't afford, I submit to you can't afford not to give. I just don't have enough to give that. Give it anyway. It's the only way you're ever going to have enough is to, again, give what you got. At the end of it, there's tremendous value in this story, that's for sure. How do I know? Because it's still being told. I mean, we don't know her name. I was joking earlier. I'd like to think she has a T-shirt that says, "I'm the widow with the 2 cents." I don't know. I doubt they give out T-shirts in heaven. But, okay. I have it on good record and report from being in the sound booth. They do, in fact, give T-shirts in heaven. I love a good T-shirt. So I'm a very happy person right now. You too. Help us, Lord. I know this, her story's still being told. And it's still impacting people. Still impacting me. And today it's impacting you. The challenge to give. All of this for me happened. So while Gabriel was here knocking it out of the park at 828, we were in Zambia and specifically in Mongoose. So it was funny. I recorded a radio show Friday morning, bright and early, through Lozy. So I was through the translator. Of course, I had Lloyd Capitula, the best interpreter on the entire planet. And then I recorded an English version for Facebook. And then we went to the bush, and that was amazing. Then we came back and preached 3 times on Sunday morning. Got back from church, was walking down to where we were staying there on Zambia Project's base. And Matt, who's been here and preached for us this last Christmas, his wife Savannah, who's actually from the States, he yelled at me over the fence. He said, "Hey, man, Sav just tested positive for COVID." Well, we had spent a lot of time with Savannah. And that was sad for her. And, you know, it was like, oof, a little disconcerting for me. But we're getting that afternoon. We had not been able to do our kids' stuff. There was some kids' stuff we were going to do, but we didn't get to do that because of COVID restrictions. But David had been working on a video, which was amazing. The kids, if you haven't seen that, just check it out. We'll make sure we get that maybe in the midweek momentum this week or something like that would be great. But, the kids from the Village of Hope, they live actually in the orphan houses with widows. It's an amazing village. So there are lots more kids at the school, like 550 plus. But this is about 50 kids that literally live on the base in houses that are designed for widows and orphans. And they're beautiful families. So David got to do a video on that afternoon. Even though we didn't get to do all the kids' stuff we were going to do, we get to do an afternoon service because they didn't get to come to church. Kids weren't allowed to come to church. So they said, we'll just do church for them Sunday afternoon. Well, my mind is all sorts of other places, right? But Carly was teaching the kids Romans 8:28. They did this song. They did some dance. We did some worship. And then it's my turn to speak. And probably not more than 10 or 15 minutes before all of this is about to happen, again, I'm with God going, okay. Because initially I thought I wasn't necessarily supposed to participate, but I was told, yes, you are actually supposed to preach. So I was like, okay, good to know. And then I had an epiphany. It's Father's Day. And here are 50 kids, orphaned on earth, but not forgotten by God. And I'm here, such as it is. Yeah. And oh my God, how good are you to me? Here I'm a dad. And I've preached, I can't even begin to calculate how many times in my lifetime. And I know I'm prone to hyperbole, but I'm telling you, the most priceless, precious preach of my life happened on Father's Day in 2021, where I got to speak as a father for the Father. And their faces and their expressions and their love for Him were, their talk back was way better than yours. It was priceless. Time and attention, presence and passion. And then just go be you in the moments of grace that God gives. At the end of it, Jesus is singularly capable of the completely miraculous. And He does it when we give what we got to Him. Well, if we withhold what we have from Him, we won't see the completely miraculous that He singularly is capable of. But when we do, we get to watch God work. Like front row, best seat in the house, Miss Jenny. Beyond what we're capable of without Him. Beautifully unbelievable and completely true. And that to me makes Him completely and absolutely worthy, singularly worthy of worship. And that's my 2 cents worth.